Nebraska's $450 million Memorial Stadium project faces fundraising questions. Lincoln. If Nebraska football is a state religion, recent efforts to raise private funds for a new football facility and to pay players are its offering plate. The people in the pews remain generous. Donors largely funded a still under construction $165 million indoor facility east of the stadium. History says they will continue to give. But new athletics director Trev Albert's latest push to raise $450 million to renovate Memorial Stadium is facing a big red rarity among some Husker boosters and state lawmakers. Pushback. Alberts says the century-old stadium needs work to serve new fans for the next 100 years. Among the changes planned, South Stadium would be replaced, improving fan seating, restrooms and concessions. Much of the construction is required to meet federal law on accessibility for disabled spectators, new officials say. They say some work is also needed to keep the stadium functional and sound. Questions about timing. Yet even some longtime donors to the University of Nebraska and Husker football privately question Albert's timing and approach in pursuing a massive new football infrastructure project. The new system, including the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, faces a projected budget shortfall of $58 million over the next 2 years. Campuses are proposing cuts to academic programs and staff layoffs. The University of Nebraska Foundation is in the middle of a $3 billion fundraising campaign to help NU broaden its academic reach and reputation in the coming years. NU football is also rebuilding. First-year coach Matt Rhule heads into the final game of his first season on Black Friday, needing to beat Iowa to secure the program's first bowl berth since 2016. Tough optics. State Senator Steve Erdman of Bayard, who serves on the Nebraska legislature's Budget Writing Appropriations Committee, said the stadium construction might well be needed. But, he said, Alberts should have waited for Rhule to win more games. Several donors who declined to be quoted by name criticized the optics of athletics asking for so much at this time. They said it risks eroding taxpayer support for NU, though the athletics department supports itself and pays millions to the academic side. A handful of donors said NU made things worse by doubling Albert's salary this month to $1.7 million and increasing his fringe benefits after insiders said he had been targeted for another job. His pay will jump to $2.1 million in 2026. It looks bad to me when you have a situation where you're considering or have raised tuition, and you're trying to make cuts in your spending at the university level, Erdman said. Some local boosters said Alberts risks donor fatigue among people who want to see results before the next ask and among megadonors who prefer different priorities. New Regent Barbara Whites of Omaha, whose family has given money to the university over the years, reflected some of that skepticism during the board's October meeting. Why now? Whites asked Alberts. Why now? College athletics changing fast. In an interview Wednesday, Alberts said the stadium project would help NU athletics shore up its bottom line as it braces for the outcomes of several court cases that could result in revenue sharing with players. He referenced lawsuits against the NCAA and more questioning whether student athletes should be paid, whether NCAA rules are anti-competitive, whether college athletes can bargain collectively, and whether amateur athletes should receive some of the millions of dollars in television rights they help schools generate. One lawsuit seeks to have Power 5 schools pay players 50% of the average revenue from ticket sales, corporate sponsorships and television revenue. At a place like Nebraska, Alberts said, he tells donors that could mean finding ways to replace up to $40 million in annual revenue. Players are going to get a significant portion of that revenue, Alberts said. The question then is, what is Nebraska's plan to deal with that? In that world, he said, the healthiest balance sheet wins. And Nebraska will have no debt, he said. Many universities are considering whether to compete at the highest level of college sports and adjusting to conference realignment, TV network influence, and name, image and likeness payments for players. This started out for me as a project that was about, let's make sure we have the creature comforts that our fans desire, Alberts said. It turned into, we better get busy very very quickly creating a business strategy that is about replacing the lost revenue that's eventually going to go straight to student athletes. Daunting scope. Alberts said he understands that the size and scope and the challenge of the project makes some people uncomfortable. At the October Regents meeting, he told the board his plans can be scaled to the amount of money donors give. He said his goal is to make sure Nebraska has the resources to compete, to keep running the athletics department independently, and to support women's sports and non-revenue sports robustly. "We will cut the cloth to fit the quilt," he said. "If any of our anticipated sources of funding either don't materialize or fall short of our expectations, we will alter our strategy and alter the total scope of our project." New regents Jim Scheer of Norfolk, Kathy Wilmot of Beaver City and Elizabeth O'Connor of Omaha told Alberts they appreciated his acknowledging the need for financial off-ramps. Scheer said he expects athletics to raise the funds, as it has, every time that I'm aware of. But he said every time that I'm aware of, given the uncertain state of the economy. Wilmot told Alberts she did not want to commit to something that could eventually cost students and the university. O'Connor said she would have preferred more explicit fundraising deadlines and benchmarks. Regents Chairman Tim Clare, during the meeting, said he understood his colleagues' questions but said excellence matters at the University of Nebraska. He called new sports a big part of our brand. He said it attracts potential donors and students. And after selling out every home football game since the 1960s, Husker fans deserve the best fan experience in the country. Questions about fundraising contract. Ultimately, the board voted to support the stadium project, unanimously approving paying an outside contractor up to $5.5 million to raise at least $225 million by the end of 2025. Under that contract with the Nebraska Philanthropic Trust, known for its relationships with Omaha's top donors, pays the fundraiser a monthly fee between $137,500 and $275,000 through 2025. It also puts new athletics on the hook for costs associated with raising funds. That includes hotels, meals and entertainment. The department must sign off on each expenditure. Several donors who spoke with the Nebraska Examiner described the contract as unusual. They said most contracts tie pay more directly to fundraising results. Thanks for watching NY Sports News. Stay tuned for more updates.